Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another review on The Flash Season 6. Have I ever said that before? Usually it's another video on The Flash Season 6, and this is going to be my review for episode 12 for this season. We're a dozen episodes through, and this episode is otherwise entitled A Girl Named Sue. But of course, if you've not watched the episode, don't watch this video because it's going to have spoilers, and there's a decent, I'm not going to say decent amount, but there's a couple in here, so be sure to have watched the episode before watching this video. But of course, if you have watched the episode and you're going to enjoy this video, it would be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support and excitement for what's to come. And of course, be sure to let me know all of your various opinions in the comment section down below in regards to what you thought of this episode. Did you like it? Did you hate it? We're in the middle. What were your favourite parts? Any theories? Let me know in the comments. Now, firstly, over the past half a week, I'd say you would have noticed a new couple of intros. They were both made by Jamal Haynes. Shout out to him, awesome dude for doing that. If you want an intro like that, or just anything really, he can do it all. Feel free to hit him up. As you can see, he did a great job, and I highly recommend him. The link to his Twitter will be in the description down below. Shout out to him, he did a cool job, and most of you guys seem to have liked it. So yeah, thank you to Jamal. Check him out. So last episode was our first real dealing with this Mirror Iris, or as I said in my trailer breakdown for this episode, Mirror, which people weren't the biggest fan of. But you could sense that something was up with her and that it wasn't really our Iris. Then we find out right towards the end of the episode that our Iris that we're normally with was stuck in the mirror, and the one we're dealing with in this episode, or in that episode, sorry, was someone different, a different version or a replicant of sorts. And of course, it was the Valentine's Day episode last week. Probably a lot of people didn't like it, which I can understand, but yeah.
Daddy likes the middle.
But just to start off, does anyone else miss the whole, like, my name is Barry Allen, blah, blah, blah intro thing? It sort of feels weird not having it in certain episodes. Not every episode, but just in certain episodes it'd be good if they had it. It feels like they try to start off the episodes now with, like, a follow-on from a cliffhanger, which doesn't work for every episode. So would you prefer to have that my name is Barry Allen thing back, or are you fine with it being gone? I'm curious, because some people always bring it up, and I'm curious just to see what everyone thinks. But in regards to picking up with this episode, we have Iris just straight away, meeting Eva McCulloch in the mirror world. They just get straight to it, and Iris learns that she is trapped. Like, she thinks like, okay, well, maybe there's just some way out of here easily, and I just haven't figured it out quickly enough. But Eva's been in there for 6 years. I do like how everything in the mirror world is flipped. You know, it makes sense. It's sort of backwards, so it get a bit confusing, I guess, or it'd take a lot of time to get used to writing backwards and stuff like that. But we do get some flashbacks, sort of like a really quick flashback scene, which is 6 years ago, Eva was developing, tech to sort of cross dimensions and everything like that, and she was working on the night of the particle accelerator incident. And it shouldn't really take too much of her brain to figure out what happens then. Of course, she was hit, but she's actually flung into the big mirror, like that mirror becoming a doorway. It's sort of similar to Sam Scudder. From memory, didn't he get hit and flung into the mirror? Or am I thinking of something different? Or like the mirror fall on him? I can't remember which one it was, but it's sort of similar to what happened to Sam Scudder back in season 3. So sort of similar. But that mirror does become a doorway, which ends up to how Iris gets dragged in there later on. But we do have Iris remembering the whole solution to getting Barry out of the mirror after, once again, Sam Scudder trapped him in there a few seasons back. I think that was season 3 or 4. I think it was 3 or 4, one of the two. I think it was, one of the two, whatever it was. And that was, of course, bringing the mirror to absolute zero. Obviously, Killer Frost did that. But that ends up a bit of a fail. It just shatters the mirror into a million bits, but that obviously comes into play later on. Now, Mirror Iris, not Mirror but Mirror Iris is still on the case outside in the real world, and we see her trying to take the mirror gun from the Star Labs archive. So she was just going to straight up steal it in this episode, but she does run into Nash Wells. He's doing some stuff, and he is still seeing Harry Wells. He's still haunting him. I think we're just going to get like a scene, maybe of that in every episode leading up to episode 16, or because episode 16 is a big episode where probably that's going to come to a head. But I am intrigued to see how they do it in the next couple of episodes, whether maybe we'll see another version of Wells, or if it is just Harry Wells. There is still some confusion whether it is Harry Wells or Wellsabard. I'm 99.7% sure it's Harry Wells, but some people are still making a case that it's Wellsabard, which it could be, you never know. But I'm interested to see where the whole Nash Wells thing goes. But due to Eva getting pretty mad, getting a bit frustrated, she actually does find out that she can control the mirrors just by one of them sort of like flinging into her hand. almost like it was almost like Dumbledore's mirror. I thought she was gonna look at it and see something. It is interesting that like they talked about how Eva, because she'd been there so long, had looked through the mirror just like how Iris is, but she'd seen over all those years her husband Joseph Carver, deal with her loss, and then eventually move on, which would have just added to Eva's frustration and, her breaking her down even further, with her being stuck in there. So Iris sort of got a feel as to where things could possibly go, because she is currently looking upon Barry move on with this alternate version of her. Because it's not like, there's an alternate version of Eva out there. Joseph Carver was just by himself. There's no Eva. But with Barry, he's with the version of Iris, so he's dealing with he like Iris is watching a different version of Barry moving on, if that makes sense. Now, throughout this episode, as the episode title does insinuate, we have a girl named Sue, so we meet Sue Dearborn. So we have Ralph on the case of Sue Dearborn. He's been occupying that case for a lot of time, and it's just been occupying a lot of his time this season. And he does finally find her in explosive circumstances, I guess you could say. Now, I did like how we had like Sue messing with Ralph at first. I thought it was pretty damn funny. It's almost very similar to Ralph when we first met him. Now, Sue's former partner, or apparent partner, is trying to kill her. Like, this is the story she goes with. And she's trying to get evidence on him to lock him up, while he's trying to kill her. So they're hunting each other just with different end games. So, of course, Ralph is going to be on Team Sue and try and help her and all of that. Now, Sue's ex-partner is called John Loring, which is an obvious nudge or reference to the character of Jean Loring in the comics, who actually, I guess you could say, murders Sue in the Identity Crisis storyline, even though the intent wasn't to murder, but she still does it anyway, and then burns her body in a very gruesome way. Jean Loring is in the Arrowverse. She's actually the lawyer for the Queen family. If you watch Arrow, you would have heard the name Jean Loring before. In the comics, she's the partner to Ray Palmer, and that sort of leads to why she does that stuff in the comics, but I won't get into that because it'll take too long. But we did have that scene when like they're sort of like investigating, or like private investigating, I guess you could say, John Loring, and we see Ralph get beat up, and I was like, how's that happening? Like, unless there were like unknown meta dampeners around like that. But there is a possibility he was trying to keep his cover around Sue, but he would have died. So was he like relying on Sue to back him up? Anyway, we got to see Sue's like kung fu skills, I guess. But then Ralph uses his powers later on. But I guess that was to save not only himself, but Sue as well. So maybe he was only doing it then because Sue was in danger, but initially at the beginning, only he was in danger. But nevertheless, Sue finds out early on who Ralph really is. And also we have Cecile's sense that Ralph and Sue are like extremely similar, but she couldn't really tell them apart. And this sort of is a hint towards Sue and Ralph's partnership in the comics and pairing. They went down a different route in this episode, which we've talked about in a second, which I thought was interesting, but I guess just to sort of strengthen the relationship, I guess you could say, later on, rather than just like get them together really quick. But of course, we had Sue double-cross Ralph while in the secure vault area, and we find out that she doesn't even really know John Loring personally. She just knows who he is, just knows where he keeps his good stuff. But of course, John Loring does join the party, as well as Ultraviolet, and we get a fight between her and Sue. Now, Sue does get away with a diamond, unsurprisingly, which opens up the door for her to do some other stuff. But the Flash does appear for the only time in the episode, I think, to save Ralph from a barrage of bullets whilst knocked down. Now, obviously, it is going to be interesting to see what they do with Sue and Ralph throughout this entire season, and how their relationship goes further, because they hit it off very well in this episode, but then of course the double cross stuff happens. So maybe they were just saying, look, they are very similar, they sort of get on, even though it could have been an act from Sue, but that can play out later once certain storylines play out. Now, we do have Barry giving the mirror gun to Iris to use in her investigation against Joseph Carver and Blackhole, which I thought, okay, just out of the blue, I guess. Like, Iris was going to steal it anyway, but then she just gets it given to her without any suspicion added to it. I'm intrigued to see where that Mirror Iris storyline goes in the next couple of episodes, or in the next like handful of several episodes. It's going to be interesting because I don't really know where exactly it's going to go, whether it's going to end up with that whole like Iris West agent of Black Hole thing or something completely different. I'm intrigued, but sort of concerned. Now, Eva is able to control the mirror shards fully and is able to sort of piece it all back together. And while it doesn't become like a doorway where they can just exit immediately, Barry seems to almost sense the real Iris almost in the mirror world. I thought when Iris tapped it and it sort of rippled, I thought Barry was for some reason going to see that ripple, or maybe see the mirror shake in some way, shape or form, or something like that. That would give Barry a suspicion about the mirror in some way, shape or form. But that's not what happened. Barry just sort of sensed her and then went back to his work. Yeah, like obviously we're going to be in that mirror world for, I guess, a decent amount more episodes. But hopefully it's not drawn out to the point where it just becomes like a boring storyline. Because that could really quickly become a boring storyline if there isn't a lot of development and a reason for them to stay in there. So hopefully it doesn't do that. Now, one of the bigger, like, oh, okay, that's interesting things at the end of the episode, which was the cliffhanger. Yeah, it was the cliffhanger, was Sue with the diamond that she stole from John Loring, and, you know, through, like, a special light, it has the black hole symbols inscribed all over it, and we do actually find out that Sue is after, or at least researching or investigating Joseph Carver as well, which you have to think along with this is also black hole. So it is going to be interesting to see, like, why she is so interested in this, and why she's investigating it as well. I think Eric Wallace has really hinted that a lot of stuff is going to tie together further down the track in this season. But of course, it is going to be interesting to see how exactly it all connects together and whether it's clean, because there is a large area where it could get very messy. So hopefully it isn't messy, and then for the most part it is clean. You know, there's room for error, there's room for mistakes, but you don't want it to be too big of a mess and too big of a mistake, if that makes sense. But I have faith in it all, and I am interested that it is really focused on Black Hole, and I think that could happen like maybe earlier on into the season than we're thinking, and then it could spout into something else for the last quarter of the season. But I'm intrigued as hell as to see how they do it all. But yeah, overall this episode I think it was a good introduction for Sue Dibney. I think it was another episode where there was no Flash and hardly any Barry Allen. I think that really stops next week. I think next week going forward, it's going to be a lot of Flash-related stuff. So maybe they're just trying to get out all this Black Hole setup and Mirror Iris setup out early in this opening 3 episodes post-Crisis. But we really need to get back into like Barry, because Barry's the main character, and he really hasn't done anything the past handful of episodes. So they need to get back into that, and because fans are going to get frustrated. They're already frustrated, and I'm not getting frustrated because I do still like the story, but the show's called The Flash. You got to have The Flash. Come on. But yeah, guys, if you enjoyed the video and you enjoyed the episode, I guess, want to drop a like on the video to show support, and yeah, all of that. Of course, let me know all of your various opinions in the comments section down below about this episode, and any theories you might have and your thoughts and opinions, everything like that. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.